It's my pleasure to introduce Nick Desien, who I've known for quite a few years. And when I first met Nick, it was kind of a natural bias, I guess we could call it, and a natural bias. Nick, when I met him, was president and chief executive officer of the Ministry Healthcare in Wisconsin and Minnesota. And it's kind of a low profile. I've always thought of it as a low profile organization. They don't have a bunch of public relations or advertising or signs on the expressway. At least I don't see them. And but yet they employ 12,000 people. They have a business of $2.2 billion. And they're part of a national organization, and I have no idea what the national one is, the magnitude of it. But Nick was president of Ministry Healthcare from 90, and executive vice president in 96, president and chief operating officer in 97, CEO in 98, and took that job, set that job aside on December 14th and became senior VP of the national organization and Ascension Healthcare Ministry market leader in this area. So Nick, it's all yours.
All right, how's that? Everyone hear this all right? You hear that fine? Well, great. Thanks for having me. I came today. Someone said, "Why'd you come today?" I came today because Dick asked, and I think those of you that don't know Dick, he's not only a terrific executive, he is just an incredible human being, and it's a pleasure to be here with Dick. And if we could all live our lives like Dick, I think this would be a better world. So, Dick, thanks for having me. I also want to acknowledge Carla Ashenhurst. Carla is our Vice President for Mission Integration, is involved in servant leadership and actually helped with this presentation today. So I will just start. This is our national organization, and you can sort of read this. But as Dick said, we have transitioned to being part of a large organization, so every time I read this, I think, wow, the largest not-for-profit health system in the country, the largest Catholic health system in the world, and the question is, for what end? For what end? What is the value of that? And that's not this presentation today, but that's one we are always asking, and the CEO of the national company is always asking. Here in Wisconsin, the operation of Columbia St. Mary's, and we just recently announced that we are bringing in the Wheaton Franciscan into this system also, so there's more to come. About our organization, I'm going to talk about there's aspects of this that were ministries that we had when we joined Ascension, and then there are aspects of this that are now Ascension. So they kind of blend together, and some is ours, some is theirs, some is we, and now it's all together as we, whatever it is we're doing. So we'll talk about that. But my perspective is sort of organizationally, what do we do? How do you, in a large organization, how do you try to make this alive and make it real in an organization? I think there are a couple things we do. I mean, one is, we have competency-based hiring and annual review processes, like most people do, but we also have numerous competencies that connect to servant leadership. So we're evaluated on listening, on foresight, on influencing, those sort of things. And we use 360 tools. We do all of the techniques that you might imagine to do. But it's really important as we look at our executives that these competencies include what we would call, however you want to word this, but what we would call attributes of leaders that we want to see in a leader at ministry and now a leader at Ascension. We have 4 core values, and it goes back to your presentation. What's core to this whole thing? What's in the center? And these are our values: service to the poor, wisdom, reverence, creativity, integrity, and dedication. And we expect all associates to demonstrate the values. Hopefully they're just not listed on a wall. For example, service to the poor, that's very interesting. We serve the poor in our healthcare organizations. But if you're an executive, like I am, and many executives, you really don't interact on the floors of the hospitals or the clinics or anything like that. Most of your interaction is in rooms like this, or boardrooms or meeting rooms and that sort of thing. So if you're an executive in our organization, our expectation is you actually, at least 4 times a year, take several hours out of your time to do hands-on service to the poor. I serve at guest house. Others do other things. And there's a whole matrix of these things that we do. And we monitor it. We engage people in it. And for a lot of our executives, they say, boy, this is one of the most valuable things that I do. But it's really important, if we're going to be an organization where our organization are providing service to the poor, that we actually know the face of the poor, not just serve on committees to help, but know the face of the poor. And so we have all those sort of things throughout the organization to try to make those core values meaningful to people. It was interesting, Dick talked about I. Well, we have I statements. How do you get this down to the floors? How do you get this down throughout the organization? And we had teams like this develop I statements that we use. We have them on cards, et cetera. And the I statements are things like this. I make eye contact with everyone I meet. That's a attribute that we want to see. I put the needs of others before my own. I see challenges as opportunity. I celebrate and recognize success in others. Celebration that you speak to. Those are in our I statement. So that's what I am committing to. I am committing to. It's not about me or I, but it's what I commit to in terms of I statement. That's another way of getting this into an organization, sort of the mechanics of doing this. At ministry, how do we live that? Well, we begin all of our meetings with a prayer or a reflection. It doesn't have to be religious nature, but that sort of grounds us. And the first item on every agenda is celebrations. What do we have to celebrate today? And we go around the room because we want people to recognize that's critical in terms of being servant leaders, and we acknowledge what we're doing well and what's going well and how we're making a difference in people's lives. And trust me, the prayer and the celebration set an entirely different tone to meetings and sort of business activities. And again, it doesn't have to be prayer, but a time of reflection of some sort. And then we do an annual review process. How do you get this? Again, I'm speaking to that as a corporation. How do we, if we want it to live in your organization, how do we do this? We have annual review process. We evaluate everyone's effectiveness. Everyone is accountable. We have strong subject matter is not enough. We want to make sure everybody embodies the values and in our organizations. And then for simplifying this, now this is one of the questions I'm sure Dick gets all the time, and that is, boy, in a large organization, whatever size organization you are, in a fast-paced world, how do you make decisions when you're sort of consensus-building organization? And it's not easy. It's not easy. It's even harder when you're sort of a national organization. I thought it was hard in our organization. It's harder when you're a national organization in 23 states. How do you get the organization to make decisions, but at the same time sort of reflect this servant leader mentality? And what we've developed is this, not developed, I mean, we got it from somewhere, I don't know where, at the national level. This was not mine, but at the national level, we do a technique called RAPID, and these are the components of decision making. So every major decision we have to make, we assign a RAPID process to it, and we say recommend. Who is going to recommend this? Who is going to recommend this? And number 2, who has input to this decision? Number 3, who approves? Who has to approve or agree to the decision? Generally, that's compliance, legal, that sort of thing. Number 4, who ultimately has to make the decision? Because in a large organization, ultimately someone's got to make the decision. And then B, who ultimately has to perform on this? And so every decision, we try to outline that in the beginning so everyone knows how will this decision be made in the organization. And if you have the D, when the decision's made, it comes back to folks about where did you get your input, what was the input, did you get the recommendation from whoever had to make it, was it approved, etc. So you have some sense of comfort with the integrity of the decision-making process. So that's something new to me, and it's been a very interesting process to watch that roll out, and it's cascading across all of our organizations now. So a question was asked, the servant leader who influenced me, and this is a sister who was the CEO of Ministry Healthcare and hired me, and she was a CEO. I got to a point in my career, I was CFO, got to a point in my career where it was time to move on. I'd done a lot of things here, and as a servant leader, she said, you know, I'm a religious woman. She said, my whole goal is to transition this ministry to laity. And my job is to develop laity that will lead this. And her and the board said, how about don't leave? How'd you like to be CEO? And we reversed roles. I became CEO, and she became a vice president of mission integration for the organization. It's been I've been doing this for about 16 years. It's been a great relationship. But she gave that up. And I thought that was the essence of servant leadership to me. And then I guess one of the questions was, how am I a servant leader to others? I didn't do it, so Carla did this, and I saw it at the end. So this is what Carla said, and I don't know if this is all right, but hopefully I try to be a listener, and I try to be available. I think it's really important to try to be a clear and concise communicator when you're in these roles, and I try that. A leader's got to be a visionary. You need to know where the organization is going, and as Carla knows, we try to lay out fairly explicit plans for long periods of time and long vision. They don't always happen, but at least people have a vision of it. And you really have to practice humility. Dick said, can't be about yourself all the time. And when someone says that about me, I really appreciate that. I think that's really what you try to do as a leader. So that's sort of the story of the corporation and how we try to live these values and make this work, and a little bit of insight about mine. So I think that's it. Okay, thanks.